All right. Welcome to the Rattling the Brain Podcast, Season 2, Episode 6. New year. We got a great guest to start it off. We have real estate agent Sam Mcdadi. Sam has built one of the most successful real estate teams in Ontario, and it is an absolute pleasure to have him here on the podcast. Sam, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure and great to be here.
Awesome. So, kind of just starting off, getting to know you a little bit. What were sports impact on you at a young age? Were you someone who liked to watch sports? Were you someone who liked to play sports? What did sports mean to you?
My younger days, it was much different than today. We were playing a lot of road hockey, baseball. All our friends were using our spare time to actually play sports. And it really helped me a lot. And I think by the age of 15, I had a younger brother, about a year and a half younger. We took a real liking to the game of tennis, and we were all in for tennis, right? So we pretty much spent all our hours on the tennis court. And I was, fortunate enough to be able to get a tennis scholarship in the States. And that kind of really helped me on confidence in many different levels as well.
So, kind of talking a little bit about tennis and your sporting history there. Was tennis something that you wanted to take as a career? Was it something that you knew had an end to it? Or was it something that you just kind of went off and were like, I'm just going to ride this until I can?
I started a little bit later. A lot of people starting tennis started 5 or 6. So I was 15 when I really took it serious. But from 15 to 18, I put probably more hours on the court than anybody else. So I knew initially I wanted to get a tennis rise scholarship. And after that, seeing how things progressed. I knew the next step up to being professional was a pretty big step. So I didn't, know if I was going to be good enough to do that, but I wanted to get a good education and then build a foundation for the future.
Awesome. So, kind of a little bit about what sport had taught you. So, obviously, you take a lot with you wherever you go, whatever you do. Me growing up, I played hockey, and what I learned in hockey is kind of translated towards podcasting, and it's translated to being charismatic, getting to meet people. It's the habits that you take with you. When you kind of ventured into real estate, what habits did you take from sport that you learned?
So many. I mean, number one, tennis is a one-on-one sport. So, at the end of the day, if you have a bad performance, it's on you. You can't blame the goaltender who let the puck in and da da da. So the pressures are pretty high. So you learn to adapt and deal with pressure and actually thrive in pressure environments. So for me, initially, it was the transition of dealing with pressure and having a scholarship and performing was difficult, but it really helped make me who I am today. So a lot of times when we're looking at hiring, et cetera, if somebody's had an athletic background, that's a big check mark for me because I know, hey, they know how to compete, they know how to deal with adversity and everything that comes with that. So to me, I mean, I think it's a huge win for us.
Are you still big in playing tennis? You still play quite a bit?
I go down to Boca once a month when I'm there and playing 2, 3 hours every day. So yeah, I still love the game.
Still head out to all the tournaments and stuff. Watch those when you can.
Yeah, I was at the U.S. Open this year. It was kind of funny because I was watching the U.S. Open finals and I took a look behind me. One seat behind me was Steph Curry, so it was
Oh,
kind of
wow.
funny, right? So it was a great final. But no, I've been to all the majors. I've been to the Australian Open, French Open maybe 3 times, Wimbledon a few times, U.S. Open. So I'm still a student and I love the game of tennis.
Is there a celebrity who is good at tennis that people might not know? Is there a certain person that is like pretty good at tennis? Who's the best tennis player you know?
Wow, that's a good question. I know there's a few that played at a really high level. I'm trying to think who they were. They actually were actually pretty competitive.
Hmm.
The name doesn't come to me, but my favorites all time is Rafael Nadal.
Rafa Nadal, nice.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
nice. Our high school actually, Milos Raonic went to my high school, so there's lots of tennis culture around there.
Oh yeah, Milos was great. I mean, I think he could have won a major had he not get injured so much because he made the finals of Wimbledon and he had a really good career and he worked really hard. Unfortunately, his body just couldn't hold up to the pressures of tennis, but I think he had a great career regardless.
I love it. So, in terms of like your career in real estate, how did you kind of start into real estate? Was it something that you felt a passion for? Was it something that you felt you were good at? How did you kind of get the start in real estate?
Well, after I finished my undergrad, and after completing the tennis cycle and circuit, I went on to do an MBA at the University of South Carolina. And I thought it'd be probably a corporate path. I'd do finance in a corporate setting. And when I came back to Toronto/Mississauga, I spent a couple of years in the corporate environment, but I really felt unhappy. And I'd get the Sunday night blues where like, oh, I got to go to work Monday. And I thought, I've got to do this for 40 years. I really want to find something I'm passionate about. And so it was a little bit of a difficult step because a lot of people thought, oh, you're leaving the corporate world to do real estate, da da da. But I liked people, I liked houses, and I thought, let's give this a shot. It's low cost entry. And the first couple of years were really difficult. So, I didn't have any contacts. It's not like I had parents who had all these friends that are going to buy and sell. So I just had to work really hard, pound the pavement. And, but I tell young people today that it was really easy. There's a couple of critical moments where I could have quit the business and I'd have never seen the successes we have today. So thriving and persevering is really important. I think sports helps you with that because you know how to deal with adversity. So, there's times you're like, it's really tough and I'm not really making a living and I love what I'm doing, but at some point I got to make some sort of existence. But at some point you turn the page. The big thing for me is I was really passionate about it and I never felt like I was working. I said, this is where I need to be because in the corporate world, I felt like I was working. The days were going really slow. Real estate, every day was going by so quick and the weeks and months. And I was doing it 7 days a week, but I loved it. So I was happy to find my path. So I was actually making a living to kind of go to the next steps.
So you're working, correct me if I'm wrong, you're working at Remax for almost 2 decades, if that's correct. And you eventually decided to start, obviously, what's McDaddy Real Estate. Kind of talking a little bit about that and putting yourself out there. Was that something that was tough for you, deciding to kind of venture off and start your own business? Was that something that was mentally tough for you? And how did you overcome that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was difficult, and we loved the Remax brand. We were with them for 14 years, and we hit the top of the food chain with Remax. But at some and one of the reasons there's a few factors. But one was I remember talking to Remax and saying, "Listen, I want to get a couple of different offices." And then there's still restrictions with territories and grids and all the above. And at one point, I even tinkered with getting a Remax franchise. And I said, you have to sign a 5-year deal. And I said, well, what if I'm not happy after year two? Well, you're kind of locked in for 5 years. So I thought, I don't want to really feel like I'm trapped or stifled. And so, I had a team meeting and I said, what do you guys think of McDaddy Real Estate? Kind of half joking. And they all said, I think we're ready for it. I think our brand can carry it. And so I said, well, this has to be unanimous. And so eventually a few that weren't sure turned the page. And interesting story. The first day we opened and we had about a 4-month runway, we did all the legwork behind the scenes, the administrative, because a lot of things as a salesperson in a team, you don't have to do when you have a company. So we had to kind of, think about all the different aspects. And day one we opened, I was really excited. And, from 9 to 12, not one phone call. So I'm like now freaked out. I said, oh, this is crazy. Maybe we made a wrong move here, da da da. Then 12 o'clock, we get a call from the phone company saying, we really apologize. Your lines are down. Now you're up and running, right?
Oh,
So we're like really relieved because like, oh, this is good. Because I was really, it was one of
uh,
those few hours of like, are we missing something here? Like what happened, right? So, and actually our first year, we doubled our sales revenue from the previous year when we were, one of the top few in the world, Remax, right? So it became a really good move for us at the right time. And we loved Remax and everything they stood for and what they did for us, but it was time for us to go to the next step.
one of the things too is that like kind of starting out, right? Things go well, but there's also a lot of pressure, right? You have people that employ and you have a crew and you're trying to do the best you can. When I was researching you, kind of learning a little bit about you, I honestly didn't know very much about your past and growing up. I had no idea. And honestly, I gained a ton more respect for you. I learned you were from the ground up. And one of the most interesting things I saw was your dad would deliver pizzas to
I
help.
saw, yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
saw
right.
that.
That's
It would
right.
help
Yeah.
help to pay for your schooling and stuff. So, in terms of mental health, there, talking a little bit about pressure, did you feel an immense amount of pressure knowing the sacrifices the people around you made? Does that help you get to where you are today? And did it ever weigh on you too much?
I don't know if it weighed on me, but I knew in my big why am I doing this? And what was my big motivation? Just to go back a little bit, to your point, my dad had a successful business, but he maybe took his eye off the ball. Things had changed. And, when you don't watch too closely, all of a sudden the business went the wrong way and you had to declare bankruptcy. And
Yeah.
so I remember before that, and this is where I think a lot of people have challenges is that, if you have a family that's successful financially, there's a level of complacency, right? So, and I felt that at that time because I thought I'll tap into the family business, everything will be fine. And we lost everything. It was like, okay, I got to pull up my socks and I got to take care of the family first. And so that was the big motivator for me. So everything I did from education to this to that was to make sure that the family was taken care of. And when I was on a tennis scholarship, everything was paid when I was doing my MBA. And by the way, that was, quite a while back. Today, the cost is even way higher, right? So it's kind of crazy. So my dad was actually who unfortunately didn't have any money, but he didn't want to let me down, not having education. So he was delivering pizzas, which was so for me, I felt like, I can't fail. I can't fail, right? I didn't take it like, oh my God, this is crazy pressure, but I just knew I'm not going to let anything take me down. Like I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to have really a tunnel vision of my success path, and I'm going to be able to take care of my parents. And so that was really always ingrained in me. The toys and all that stuff was fun after the fact, but it was never the driver. I mean, the toys can come and go. That's kind of a temporary kind of high, but making sure the big thing for financial freedom for me is that you can be your own boss and you can be true to yourself, right? So you don't have to be a yes person. I never want to be that. I want to be really true and authentic to myself. And I think having success and having your own business allows you to be that. And humility, because I think people have success sometimes it goes to their head, and you always got to stay humble, because I tell people you can get chopped down real quick. Anything can happen real quick in life. So be grateful and humble versus the alternative.
One of the things that I really like there about humility, right? Like every time I would come up to you at a Raptors game, obviously you like to go to the games. Anytime I would see you, always willing to have conversations, shake people's hands, take pictures with people, talk to people, being able to make connections with people. How important is that in the industry?
I think it's great, but it's really authentic, because I actually love that. Even when in university, I'd shake everybody's hands, and they were probably wondering, like, what's he want? And I thought it was nice just to be nice to people, right? And it felt nice. It felt better that than the alternative, and it's better to put a smile on somebody's face versus, life is tough enough as it is, so why not maybe make somebody feel good, right? So I think that was always, my motto from a young age, right? So it's natural for me, like just like you, like you're very charismatic, and I think you've got great people skills, but I think it's, comes, to you naturally, right? So
In terms of, like your background in sports and obviously with real estate now, was it always your plan to kind of incorporate athletes into what you do? Obviously, you have Chris Bassett, George St. Pierre, you're a big Raptors fan. Is
yeah.
that always a plan of yours to be able to be around sports at this age, working in real estate?
Well, I didn't know it was going to lead to that, but eventually, the doors opened up, and I built some really good friendships with GSP, and most of the Raptors, we helped them a lot with the real. So we've become very friendly with many of them. So it's been a great organic growth. I don't think it was by design, but I've really enjoyed it, because I appreciate the athlete mindset and what it takes to get to that top. Like when you talk to GSP, for example, you gain greater appreciation, because this guy is one of the best MMA fighters. But not only that, he's such a good, thoughtful human being that your level of respect gets really amped up.
It's the thing when you're really close to someone, you can really see the sacrifice that they make to get to where they are, right? Like you just see these athletes, you see these people with success, and you're like, wow, they're at the top, but no one really knows how they got there. And you got to have a personality to make it in certain businesses. So
Like you said, sacrifices are to get to the top, you're paying a price. And I tell people, even in real estate, you've got to suffer a little bit. If you just want to get to the top and you think it's going to be an easy ride, it's not. Nothing in life is ever easy, but the rewards can be very gratifying.
a little bit of a tough question here regarding your mental health, but was there ever a time where you were unsure if you could make it? Was there ever a time where, you were in a bad place and things seemed tough? And if someone is in that place, what advice would you give to them?
I mean, there's definitely been low periods, and especially earlier on, where and we were talking about earlier. There's times where it would have been easy to quit. I remember my first year or two. The first year I did one day, two deals, and I was kind of really excited, because I was kind of, and you shouldn't really do this, but I was counting, I'm going to make X amount, and then I can pay off some student loan, and da 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 da. And the two deals were conditional. One deal fell through because my mortgage guy said, "Oh, they just went bankrupt a month ago. They don't qualify." I was about a half of a dagger, and I said, "Okay, well, the second deal, at least I've got that." And it was my mom's friend who I showed 100 houses to. She decided to back out. So it was, I remember, for a week tossing and turning. It was a really difficult period. And I don't think I just felt like, wow, I want to get ahead and I want to succeed. And I don't think I ever felt like, depressed or down, because my mind, when I was younger, age 18, 19, going to university, I was reading all the self-help books. So I was really ingraining myself from a positive perspective early on. So I was kind of influencing my thoughts, and I wouldn't let any negativity come in as much as you can. There's always distractions. So I didn't get depressed, but certainly there was low periods where I had to kind of really dig deep to know that I can still succeed. Okay, I've hit, maybe close to rock bottom, but it can only go up from here. And I've got the will and the work ethic, and I think the talent to do well. So I believe myself to know I can endure those tough days.
Do you have any advice for young students or, young men or women trying to break into an industry? What's some advice that you have in terms of being able to get to where you want to get to?
Well, I think firstly, it's really important to do it for the right reasons, right? So oftentimes people say, for example, in my industry, I'll use that as an illustration. I want to get into real estate because I can make a lot of money. I'm like, the money will take care of itself, but you have to do it from a place that comes from the right place. Take care of your clients, do all the right things, right? So whatever vocation somebody's looking to pursue, make sure it's something that really resonates with you, that you don't feel like working. If you feel like you're working, it's probably not the place for you. And I'm fortunate because I think 80% of the people are probably doing jobs out of necessity. They've got to take care of their families. So they're resigning themselves to a fate that probably isn't perfect, right? So if you're in a position where you can find something that you really love to do and you're passionate about, and no, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, I tell people, listen, my overnight success was 30 plus years, right? So it takes a long time to get to where you want to be, but it's a work in progress, right? So if somebody wants to be in real estate, well, they may not be me the first year, but there's enough room on top to be there in 5 or 10 years if you do the right things, right? So be patient because anything good takes time to get to.
I like that. That's good advice. One thing that I saw about you is your belief in health is wealth, being able to keep healthy. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you do to keep your mind in a healthy spot?
Yeah, I mean, health is so critical for me, and I really instill that upon my teammates as well, and all my family and friends. And so, I remember playing tennis, and I was at that time 18, 17, 18, playing a tennis tournament, and I start to cramp up where it's really excruciating. My stomach, my legs, and everything was giving out, right? And I had a friend there, and he goes, Sam, you got a terrible diet. And I didn't even know what the word diet meant. I said, what do you mean? I'm having chocolate bars and, pop. What's wrong with that? And so he said, Sam, I'm going to give you a book. And he gave me a book called The Sugar Blues. And it talked about how bad sugar was, the whole bit. And this was at age 18, 19. So I took the book, I read it. I gave up sugar completely. I said, that's it, no more sugar. So I started reading all my ingredients, the whole bit. So early on, even before going to university, I was already having the mindset diet's really important, et cetera, et cetera. So, nowadays, for example, how I start my day, the first 2 or 3 hours are Sam time. So I get a masseur that comes to my house every day for 60 to 90 minutes. I've got my trainer, so we work out. Then I've got a red light bed, a cold plunge, a sauna. So all those things are so important for me because it puts you in a good state of mind, right? So, and if you don't have, I always say health really is wealth, right? So if you don't feel well, like the last couple of weeks, which is unusual, but I was a little sick and under the weather and it had lingered a little longer than usual. I thought, all I want to do is feel good. Like if I don't feel good, that's the only thing that matters to me. I don't care about anything else. So you kind of take that for granted until something goes wrong, right? So, and at the end of the day, you can have all the tea in China, but if you don't have good health, it really means nothing, right? So I'm a big still to the point where I've got a full-time chef where everything's organic and I intermittent fast and all that stuff. So, but I feel great, and I think that's really really important because how you feel is going to determine how you're going to perform as well.
Like my mom always says to me, I'm not one to be like I have the best diet. I definitely do not, but you only get one body, right? You only get one body, and that's your body for your life, and you got to take care of it. And that's one thing I agree with is like you got to take care of your health mentally and physically, and what you eat is basically how you perform.
Interesting. I do blood work every 4 months because your blood turns over every 4 months, and sometimes I might add a new variable to my diet to see what that does. And so for 4 months, I said I'm not going to take any vitamins. I do take a lot of vitamins. I'm not going to do sauna, red, cold, none of the above. I just want to see what my diet does without all those add-ons. And I was ready for the numbers to be a little bit offside and everything, but they're really good. So I came to the conclusion, your diet's your foundation. Everything else is an add-on, right? So if you have a really good diet, then everything else will take care of itself. Because really that's your fuel, right? So if you're putting in bad fuel, then of course at some point when you're 20, listen, you're young, you're good.
Yeah.
As the years pass, what you do day in, day out will reflect in the future.
Do you have a favorite meal?
I'm a pescatarian now, so I love fish. The
Oh,
fish is
very
the big,
nice.
yeah, I'm a big fish guy, right? So listen, I used to love red meat and the wagyus and everything, but it wasn't great for, yeah, and everybody's got different trains of thought whether you're carnivore or not, but yeah, with fish, yeah, I'm a big fish guy.
I like it. So in terms of balance, right? Balance is such key, in my opinion. It's one of the most important things that you can have. Obviously you're a busy guy, you got work, you got your family, you got clients, friends. How do you kind of manage that balance? When you're busy working all the time, how do you make time for family and make time for work? How do you kind of balance your schedule?
I would say the first, 15, 20 years, I probably had very little balance. I was just all work and everything else. I mean, of course, I still did my working out and all that, but outside of that, I was really like, people would tell me, Sam, we used to have lunch with you and you were like, so like into your work, we couldn't even really have a dialogue with you, right? So, and so that it's always a work in progress, but I did realize at some point, well, if you're doing all this, what's the point if you can't actually enjoy and kind of have some kind of balance, right? Whatever that balance looks like, right? So, Yeah, it's not easy for sure, but I also learned, and one of the things I tell a lot of people, realtors, if I'm talking to a group, etc., is listen, figure out your hourly worth, figure out what your income is, divide it, see what your hourly rate is. And if you're doing a task less than that, you shouldn't do it. You should delegate it. So it was difficult for me initially to delegate. I didn't want to delegate. I wanted, I just had trouble letting go. And once I did, I was like, oh my God, I should have done this with good, capable people. I've got like 5 personal administrators now. So it frees me up to
Right.
do the things I should be doing, right? And now still have a balanced life. So I get to Boca Raton in Florida. We've got a place there. I go there once a month, like I was saying. I'm playing tennis. I'm getting my Thai massages. And I feel great. So I come back, recharge. I'm still working there, but I'm doing things that are really good for my mental health, right?
Right.
That make me feel, because for about a decade I didn't do that. And you could tell by the end of the spring market, I looked all haggard, tired. I mean, I was going to take a few months just to recover, right? Where I didn't really want to feel that. I wanted to work hard, take a few days, recharge, work hard again, right? So and everybody's way of balancing is different. But for me, I think the delegation piece allowed me to have more of a balance.
Right. If you can go back in time and tell young Sam, one thing, what would that thing be?
Wow, that's a great question. Listen, I think when you're younger, you're very impressionable. So don't be influenced by peer pressure, right? Do what you think is right for you. Because when I was a teenager, I just wanted to be in the in crowd and fit in. And,
Right.
and so there's a lot of pressure with that, right? And when you get older, you realize, that really doesn't matter. You got to find your path, right? So if you have the courage to go against the grain and do what really feels right for you, regardless how society feels you, that's what you should do.
Growing up, were you always a big basketball fan? Obviously, you go to a lot of Raptors games. Did you become a big basketball fan as you got older? Did you always love basketball? Did you go to Raptors games when you were younger? What was that like?
Yeah, listen, I would say I'm a big sports guy. I love all sports, right?
Yeah.
And so, Nav is a good friend, the super fan. And so about 5 years ago, he goes, DeMar had the 2 tickets beside him and he got traded, unfortunately. So he said, Sam, I'm not sure I'm going to do these tickets. We were on a 3-on-3 game. I said, Nav, I'll take those tickets.
Was that
And
the championship year?
the championship year. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Nav's like, Sam, I've been going 25 years. The first year, come along for the journey. They win the championship, right?
I had
So
a good time.
oh, it's so fun. And we went to all the away games for the playoffs, so and I got really hooked, right? And so, I think a basketball live is a little different than other sport because, I know you're a hockey guy. I used to love hockey back in the day. I used to love Boreasol, all those guys.
Oh yeah.
But when you watch a hockey game, it's not the same entertainment value. Like
Mm.
basketball, there's so much going on, the whole bit. So when you bring guests there, they love the experience, right? So, and for me, I first thought I was going to give some tickets away, go to a few, and I said, Sam, I'm going to be selfish. This is far too fun. I'm gonna go to all these games or the majority. So I think in 5 years, I've missed maybe 3 or 4 games, right? So that was it, right? So, but yeah, so I think basketball I've always enjoyed, but I think the last 5 years it got amped up.
Yeah, like I'm super fortunate. I've got the opportunity to go to so many good games. Obviously, the Kawhi game-winning Game 7 was one of the best.
So you're sitting right behind me, I think, right?
I was right behind you for that. Yeah, I was
And
at.
watching it going, it had no right to go in. All of a sudden, there's this reverse. It's like, whoa.
It was unbelievable. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. Like it felt like the ball was on the rim for 20 seconds there. It was craziest moment of
Yeah,
my
I
life.
remember that when he shot it. I'm like, it doesn't look like it's going to go in. It's overtime. All these things are going through my mind. Well, they traded DeMar for Kawhi, and
Yeah.
if we don't get any further, so all of a sudden it kind of goes in, and everybody goes like it was insane. Like the energy, the electricity there was off the charts. Incredible, incredible.
For me, it was when Butler made that layup to tie it. I was like, the first thing I was just like so optimistic all game. I was like, oh my goodness, like we could lose this game. Like this could be it. And I was like, oh my goodness, like it was tied and you
Oh,
know,
the nerves are. I mean, it was just unreal. Like it was an unreal day, right? But yeah, and then when they were down to Milwaukee 2-0, and they have to win in double overtime in Toronto, otherwise they're so the Stars really have to align to win a championship, right?
yeah.
And that was an exciting year though for sure.
Yeah, I got to go to my first NBA Finals game there too. Game 1, I got to see, which was unbelievable. Uh,
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things about it too is I had tickets. My dad actually surprised me. He got me tickets to Game 7 if a Golden State series if there was a game.
Oh
I
wow.
was
We
like,
didn't want a game 7 though. We didn't want
I
a game
I
7.
didn't want a Game 7, but I was also like kind of like an in between spot. I was like, let's just win it here, but also it was it's such a cool
Game
experience.
five, they should have sealed the deal. Game
I,
five. They're
I thought I thought Lowry was going to score that. It got tipped, but
yeah, yeah, you got it. You got it. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
at a moment, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. No, that was I mean, I can't believe it's been 5 years removed, but what a great time for a city.
In terms of like making connections, one more question about that. You have all these great connections and meeting these awesome people. How do you maintain good connections among people? Do you just work on, making sure that you keep in touch with them? What's some advice to make connections?
Yeah, listen, I think keeping in touch is really important, but not too much. So, I mean, if I'm talking to my friends, let's say like OG and Precious, where we're very close, etc., we'll be texting or WhatsApping, once a month, but not every day because you still want to respect their busy folks and stuff. And so, and I think if they see you're genuine, authentic, you build a relationship, right? And for me, all the relationships I have, I don't want or expect anything from. I just like their friendship, right? And I like to learn from them, and I like their energy and what they can bring. And so when I bring GSP to talk to my friends or my team, it's just more helping them to see, hey, here's a winner. Here's a guy who gets it from A to Z. And so, and G and I, we've organically developed a really nice friendship, right? So even when I was in Paris this year watching Team Canada play and they lost, unfortunately, in the quarters. I was ready to come home. And all of a sudden, I see George is at the Canada House. I was there the day before. And I
Yeah.
said, well, what's up? I said, gee, you're here. He goes, where are you? I said, I'm here. He goes, we got to get together. I said, when are you leaving? I said, I think I'm leaving tomorrow. He goes, oh, no, no. We're going to go watch wrestling together. So I'm watching Olympic wrestling with George St. Pierre, which was so cool. Right?
That's
So,
unbelievable.
I mean, it's been a really fun experience, which all happened organically, right? So, and I think if you try and force it, it doesn't work, right? So it just let it come to you. And I think that's really important.
Do you have a personal goal for 2025, a resolution? Is there something that you want to be better at 2025? And what would that thing be?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. When I was setting my goals this year, and I do that and try and stick to them the best I can. So, a couple of things. One is, when I was 18, 19, I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it really kind of shaped me in terms of how you should deal with people, how birthdays are important, names are important. Don't talk slanderously of people. And sometimes, you can find yourself maybe shifting away from that. So I said, you got to live those values and principles day in, day out. Make sure that you're always kind to people. You're going to have people sometimes that aren't respectful, take the high road. So I want to really reinstill that. For me, small goals were, sometimes I get to bed too late and that's not great for the health. So I said, get to bed before midnight and da da da. So, a lot of my goals are related to with health, with team. And for me, I want to see all my team members succeed. So, making sure they're well mentored and trained is really important. So, I mean, yeah, and I feel really blessed because I feel like I wake up every day really happy. Like, I mean, of course, there's some days that aren't perfect days, but I feel like I've got the right mindset, which, because at the end of the journey, you want to say, hey, I enjoyed my life. I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed that journey all the way throughout. Not, I got there, but I was miserable, right? Because that's not fun too, right? Because in this day, you don't know what your life's going to look like. We don't know. Life's not guaranteed, right? So you want to do the right things day in, day out. And if tomorrow's my last day, I'd say I had a great life. I'm very blessed for what the life I've had.
I love it. And just to end off with one more final question, I asked this question to a few people. It's definitely one of the hardest. I've had a guy who took 5 minutes to answer this question, couldn't think about it.
Sure.
In your opinion, who is the coolest contact that you have in your phone? I feel like George St. Pierre would be an easy answer, but besides George St. Pierre,
Yeah, listen, yeah, G's pretty big. I've got all the actors too that are
Raptors, that's pretty
they're
sick.
pretty good too. Yeah. It's not that I don't. Yeah, I mean, Ronaldinho is another soccer legend that
Oh
worked
yeah.
with too.
Wow.
So, yeah, so yeah, we've got. So yeah, I think GSP's right up there for sure, and also because I really like him as a human being, right? So, yeah, so I think GSP, I'd have to say, is up there. A lot of my friends were saying, Sam, it's kind of crazy the people you have your speed dial. Da da da. I
Yeah.
said,
No,
listen, it just happen, and eventually you just kind of ride that wave, and you've got some really good friends that are really fun to be around, and so. And I think, for people who are listening that, these people, if you listen to, you're known by the company you keep, right? So if you have good people around, and it doesn't mean they have to be a high profile, highly successful, but the right mindset, right? The right determination, right? And I think that's the key, right? And of course, these people at these operating at a high level, well, they have the right mindset. Otherwise, they wouldn't get to where they are, right? So, and I think that's really the key because if you're around negativity, that's
yeah.
going to really negatively impact you, right? So, and I think I remember there's a friend of mine I associated with from time to time, and at the end of the day, I'm so drained. He's zapped all my energy, right? I said I can only do this once a year because it's really an energy drain, right? Where other guys you're with, you're like, this is great energy, and my energy is just getting lifted. So I think that's so important.
I love it. Awesome. Well, don't want to take up too much of your time. Really appreciate you coming on here. This is a great episode to start off the new year. And yeah, that's it for me. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Aaron. It's always a pleasure. Good seeing you, and we'll see you at a
I'll
Rattling.
definitely see you at a bunch of games too. I think I got two more games this upcoming year, so I'll definitely pop by and say hello.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Aaron.
Awesome. All right, guys, this concludes season two, episode 6 of the Rattling the Brain podcast with Sam Mcdadi, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks.